Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
1, 2. Check me out right here, yo.
Yo, the sun don't shine for.
Welcome into the Bob Sullivan Show here on latenightsportsradio.com. If you are watching the NBA Finals, I am sorry for you right now, but I am joined here in hour number 1 by Carla Metz of Midcoast Sports Network and 4th and Inches-CM.com. Carla, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Big NBA fan, trying to enjoy the, last, what I was hoping was going to be 7 games. Now it's looking not like that. But we are also joined by another guest, and that other guest is Harambe, the ghost of Harambe from the Cincinnati Zoo, the gorilla that was unfortunately shot. Carla, I have many questions for Harambe. What question would you like to ask the ghost of Harambe?
Yeah, this is a important question, I think, but I just wanted to know, did you realize that you were in a zoo or like in captivity before the boy fell in?
Well, let's see.
You know what they say, human see, human do.
That doesn't really make sense, Harambe. Do you have anything else to say on that?
I'll tell you one thing that every good soldier knows. The only thing that counts in the end is power. Naked, merciless force.
Interesting responses. I mean, those are kind of, not really gorilla-type responses, but we'll take them because they were from Apes, Planet of the Apes. So we have to give credit to the so I don't get sued. But, Carla, as far as the NBA Finals have gone, first 2 games have been complete. This last one especially was a blowout. Game 1 probably would have been worse had Curry and Thompson had good games. What is your take on these 2 games?
Well, first of all, just kind of like you said earlier, it's exciting that we still have basketball and it's June right now. But yeah, these games haven't been very exciting so far. I honestly, at the very beginning of the series, I wasn't sure who I wanted to win. I still really don't have a preference because I know a lot of people, throughout the country don't like LeBron, but I think he does deserve one at Cleveland, and then I'm a fan of Steph Curry and the full team of the Warriors. Just their camaraderie has been really, really fun to watch this year, and I kind of want them to win too because I think it just justifies the 73-win season. But yeah, as far as these games go, not a lot of excitement, and I'm kind of surprised too to see so much production from the Warriors bench. I mean, I think that's been really interesting to see in the series, the first 2 games so far.
Yeah, the bench has, that's what a lot of the credit goes to. At least in as far as the Warriors go, it's the excuse for why they're good is, well, they're lucky to have a Sean Livingston and Leandro Barbosa and Luis Spates, but I didn't hear, before, the last 2 seasons when this team actually got good, I didn't hear fans of the Cavs or fans of the Heat or anybody really being like, really good teams, fans being like, oh, we got to go get a Sean Livingston off the bench.
Right.
I think they're good because of the system. And, these guys have always been, they've been good, solid role players in other spots, but, they're good in this current system. I don't think they necessarily fit in great with the Cavs or, other teams. I feel like it's the system. Do you feel it is the system with the Cavs or with the Warriors, excuse me?
Yeah, I do. And I just think, fast-paced offense has done really well. But they also, that's what they're known for. Obviously, anything from around the perimeter that team's pretty good at. But they've also defended really well against Cleveland, and I think that's been interesting. And then Cleveland just kind of like shot themselves in the foot too because I mean, they've missed, I know in game one, I mean, gosh, they missed so many easy layups. They just left a lot of points out on the floor.
As far as LeBron goes, are you just kind of in between on him, or do you are you deep seated hatred? You love him. Where do you stand with him?
That is a good question. When he first got into the league, I wasn't sure how I felt about him. As he's matured, I mean, you can tell in his post-game press conferences, he's a different player than he was. And so I think, there's a lot of LeBron haters. I don't think that I am one. What's interesting though is that, this is his 6th straight finals, and he's never been favored. He's never been like the favorite heading into the finals. So I just think that's interesting. It's like, and people don't really think of him. They don't think of LeBron as an underdog, but they kind of treat him as one, even though, I would say he's one of the best players in the NBA right now. So, yeah, I'm definitely not a hater. I'm not sure where the series is going to go. Obviously, it's favoring very, very hard to the Warriors. But, yeah, I mean, LeBron, he deserves one, I think. He deserves a title, but I don't know if it'll be this year or not.
Well, it's weird to me. Like, I followed the, when it was Dallas versus Miami, his first time in the finals in Miami, I didn't realize that they were an underdog going into that series. I didn't know, I guess I wasn't.
Yeah, you don't think of them as that way in any game, really. I mean, I don't certainly think of them as an underdog, but yeah.
No, look, and even looking back on it, it just seems like, Vegas would skew. I mean, I guess I wasn't as big into looking at odds and points spreads as I am now, but looking at it back then, it's just like I'm just shocked that there was Vegas not skewing the odds as far as, like, they always do that with the Cubs or the Red Sox before they started winning the World Series. They'd skew the odds to try to tempt people to be like, oh, the Cubs are 500 to 1 shot to win the World Series. I might as well put down $5 on that. It's worth it. So it surprised me.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's interesting, too, because heading into Game 3, I mean, just with the way that it's going to, the way the scores have been and the way that they've played, especially even in the second half. But the odds right now, I think if they had won, I think I read somewhere earlier this weekend, if they won Game 2, the odds were going to jump to like 90% that they were going to win, which is, I mean, as a fan, that's easy to see right now. But I mean, that's a pretty big jump in when you're looking at the series, trying to evaluate what's going to happen as far as odds go.
Is there anything that when you were watching the, playoffs leading up to this, did you think that there was any chance that this was going to be a blowout? Like, I actually felt like so far the only team that's given the Cavs a really good series was the Pistons, because I felt like they were in every game, and they didn't really get shelled in any of those, and the Raptors got shelled in pretty much every game that they lost, and probably should have been out in 5. But did you see this happening, or were you just hoping for a good series? What were you thinking going in?
Well, obviously, I mean, I don't know, just because we're so used to covering sports, I wanted something more competitive. I mean, obviously we knew too that the Warriors are good. You don't win 73 games, in the season and not be good. But I did think Cleveland was going to make it a little bit more interesting. I mean, especially comparing it to last year in the finals. They had so many players that were out with injuries, and I mean those were key players in their season before the finals. So I definitely thought it was going to be more of a challenge for the Warriors this year, but I mean it doesn't look like it's playing out that way right now.
Before we get back into the NBA, I do have a question. I was kind of talking about this with Keith, my producer, before we got on air, but in college basketball, I'm not a huge fan of March Madness, the one and done. I like the fact that it's, it's good for mid majors, and I've been a fan of Creighton since I was born. So I know the mid major and the upset, winning the one game is exciting. However, I would like to think that a 16-team college basketball playoff where it's best of 7 or even best of 3 or whatever, where you're getting games between, I don't know, Duke and Kentucky, 7-game series between Cameron Indoor and Rupp Arena or Chapel Hill or wherever it may be. I think that would be the coolest thing on the face of the earth with college basketball. I think they could really benefit from that. I think that would be awesome on TV, but it'll never happen. Yeah. But would you be on board with something like that?
I think that's an interesting thought. I haven't thought of that. Especially, I am a big fan of March Madness, so yeah, I haven't thought of that. I think it would give fans maybe a little bit different perspective because you get to know the teams a little bit more. March Madness, you especially the mid majors, you hear of a team that you've only heard of once and you don't really know much about them, and then if they win or lose, I mean that's kind of it as far as your knowledge of that team, unless they advance to the Sweet 16 or something. I personally, I like March Madness. I think that the one game system is what creates the excitement. But if you're not a fan of March Madness, I can definitely see that you would want, maybe more of a series type of setup. But I think it's that one game that makes it exciting because then, it's the Cinderella team of, they might could win or they might not. It just depends on, what's going in their favor that night. So I think that's what makes it exciting. Also what makes the brackets, kind of fun to fill out because nobody can ever even get close, to winning that. But yeah, I do think that's I would like to see that, how it maybe would, like the pre-plans of that, how someone would try to set that up and how it would kind of all lay out. I think it's interesting, but I think as far as March Madness goes, I think I would probably just stick with the one game just because I like the excitement of that it's anybody's game. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess you wouldn't get the one game like, Carolina could come back in game 2 against Villanova and change the story or something like that. But I definitely feel I don't like these big stadiums hosting these college games. That's my problem. Like when I came up to the Summit League tournament at the at Sanford, that was a cool atmosphere, mainly because South Dakota State was good. But like if it might be a little bit different story for my opinion as far as the crowd goes if they had lost in the first round against Oral Roberts, which they almost did. But looking at that tournament, like that's cool when you get a good crowd in there. But in the NCAA tournament, I feel like the crowds aren't as good. I feel like the NIT actually has better crowds because they allow home games for rounds.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that completely. I mean, the Summit League, even set records, the past 2 years of, however many people we had coming for both men and women's games. It was unbelievable that we had, one of the highest crowds in the country. But yeah, I agree with that. Sometimes the big arenas it's too much, especially if you're not going to sell it out. It's one thing if you can sell it out, but if not, then it's kind of, I agree. And the WNIT was fun. We got to see that too with USD this year, and them getting the advantage of the home court. And that was so much fun. And just to see, really, I think with that tournament, like you said, it's the home crowd. It's the people that actually live in the city kind of rally around their teams, and fill the stadium every night that they play. So that was a lot of fun to see that side of tournament play rather than, the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. A few more things before I let you go. Okay, so you do sideline reporting, you do sideline interviews with coaches after games, halftime.
Yes.
All right. If I were to interview Greg Popovich, my first question would be, why do you spell Greg with 2 G's? Or 3 G's,
Right.
I'd probably get punched in the face or something. It wouldn't be good. How would you handle an interview with Greg Popovich?
Oh gosh, that's interesting. I feel like he would be one of those coaches. There are certain coaches that you come across on the sideline, whether it's in basketball or football, that you really, sometimes they only let you get like one word out sometimes, and then they just kind of take it from there. I feel like it would kind of go along those lines, that, you know, the coach would end up kind of taking a little bit more control initiative into the answer. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely some intimidation factors that comes with him and just his platform for sure, and just, you know, how he's known in the media as well.
Is there, you know, I didn't go to journalism school. I didn't go to any type of school to learn how to do this. I just kind of picked it up and went. But what do they teach as far as dealing with, you know, a person that gives short answers when you know, I think Doris Burke or David Aldridge, you know, Sager to a certain degree, they all ask open-ended questions to Popovich, but he just doesn't. He won't let them in. And I understand that as a coach, but how do you? What's taught to you when dealing with that, or is that kind of a new thing that has to be taught now that journalism teachers are seeing how Popovich?
I think it should be taught. Yeah, I think especially for coaches like him, I think that it should be taught. I actually did not go. I mean, I have a journalism minor, but I did not go to school for broadcast necessarily. So a lot of the stuff that I've encountered this past season has just been, you know, a trial and error kind of thing. But yeah, I think they say, you know, expect the unexpected. So I think with that, you just, you know, I had coaches, some too, that would, you know, only give me a few words, and you just kind of take what you can get, and, you know, hope that, you know, at least the post-game interview is a little bit better than the halftime, because halftime, you know, coaches they're focused on getting in there with their teams, and as a reporter, you just understand that. I mean, you're doing your job and they're doing theirs, which is focusing on the team and the game. So there's not a whole lot that you can do, and, you know, especially you're not going to change some coaches. Like, they've been doing this a lot longer than obviously I've been doing sidelines, so you accept the kind of coach that they are and play off of it, especially when it's live TV.
Have you don't have to give any names, but have you ever had a coach that you interviewed where you're like, who do you think you are? Or a player where you think, who do you think you are, where you're talking down to me? Have you ever had an instance where you wanted to say that, but your professionalism got in the way?
I have not.
Oh, dang it.
I know it's disappointing right now. It's only been in my first year in South Dakota, though, so who knows what'll happen. But a lot of good coaches, and yeah, it'll just be interesting to see how this next year pans out as well. A lot of them are preoccupied. Like I said, they're focusing on halftime. They're focusing on celebrating with their team afterward, and so they're not as focused on my questions as maybe I would like them to be. But, you know, like I said, it's their job. They're doing their job, and I'm doing mine. But yeah, nobody's been rude or talked down to me, so I've been pretty lucky in that, because I'm sure it's coming eventually.
You know, you do have the Southern Georgian accent.
Yes.
How do you?
How could you tell?
Yeah. Well, the Twitter bio gave it away, and then when I saw you on Midco when I was in South Dakota for the Summit League tournament, that gave it away as well. But what do you when you were you told anything when you came to Midco, like, hey, you got to sound like you're from the middle of nowhere, because these people are actually kind of from the middle of nowhere with no accent? Because that's the
yeah, I mean,
that's the Midwestern is having a nowhere accent.
Yeah, and a lot of journalism schools, I think, do teach that you need to have that, you know, that I don't know what you would call it. I guess just the basic American American accent, I guess, without an accent. But Yeah, they didn't tell me anything at Midco. They have told me every time before broadcast, they tell everybody the same thing, and that's just to be yourself. My mom is an English teacher, so I know I hear her in my head a lot of times just to enunciate, because if I'm talking to my friends back home, a lot of times I'll leave off the G's off the end of words, or I'll catch myself during broadcast and I'll say something. I'm like, oh, wow, that was really Southern, just because I'm more aware of it because I do live in the Midwest. But yeah, a lot of people from home, though, tell me they think I've lost some of it. A lot of people here will disagree. I think if I can get, obviously where you can tell maybe I'm not from here, but, I don't want to be, have a super thick Southern drawl either, so that people can't understand me when they're watching.
You don't want people to think you need a cowboy hat while you're on
right.
TV.
Exactly.
I think with the what's the one thing you miss that we don't have here in the Midwest? Like in the Midwest, you really I don't know if you've been to Mama Lada's enchilada shop,
right?
Sioux Falls. That's a great place, but the Mexican food here is not that great. Is there something it's good, but it's not authentic, and it's you can get is there something you miss from down?
Yeah. Two things come to mind. Number one, my office gives me all the time because I love Chick-fil-A, and there is not a Chick-fil-A not in Fargo, not in Sioux Falls. The closest one I think is maybe Sioux City, and then the cities. So they kid me every time about that. Anytime I have the chance to get Chick-fil-A, I will. And also, my mom is a phenomenal cook. She used to cook like Sunday lunch after church every week, and I miss that so much. My parents do like a freshly grown garden every summer, so we have like green beans and squash and corn and all sorts of fresh vegetables, and so I really miss that part of it. And I mean, I guess I could start my own garden in the Midwest, but I'm sure the seasons would throw me off a little bit.
Well, and plus summer probably lasts like 7 months out of the year in Georgia versus 2 months out of the year in South Dakota.
Yeah, it's like probably 100 degrees down there right now, so I am enjoying the summer up here.
Well, in Omaha, we just got our second Chick-fil-A, maybe third Chick-fil-A, I believe. These chicken places, that Raising Cane's. I like chicken, but it's tough for me when it's, there's some. Obviously, it's nice to have a place where it's like, okay, that's our specialty. We're just going to do chicken, or we're not going to go out into other things like when Subway ventures out into, wraps or something like that, where it's like, okay, that's not your specialty. Nope, stay in your lane. And Chick-fil-A is like, I'm not big into chicken, but if I need chicken, I'll go to one of those places. I'll drive out of my way for one of those places. That's why I like those.
Yeah, fried chicken is a thing of the South, so that's like a staple food for us.
Yeah. Is there anything that, the South or that the Midwest does differently from the South that's wrong as far as, whether it's a home-cooked meal where you're just like, what are you doing? That's just not right.
Let me think. I mean, this isn't a big deal, but I feel like, and maybe, I'm sure I'm not going to categorize all families into this, but a lot of families eat out here, and I feel like a lot of people, especially in Georgia or the cities that I've lived in Georgia, like sitting around the family table and stuff, that's still like a big thing to do at dinner time. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen here. I just know that it doesn't happen, or it hasn't happened as much as I've seen it, with families and everything. But that doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just a little bit different is all. And of course, nobody has control over the weather, but the snow does get to be a lot during the winter. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the snow, I will advise you to, Yeah, it gets bad, but just don't slam on the brakes. That's the biggest thing, is don't slam on the brakes. Trust.
Yeah,
it's the one time when you don't want to rely on your brakes is during snow.
Right. Yeah, I found that out the hard way this winter. So.
Well, last thing before I let you go, do you want to tell everybody where we can find you on Twitter, the internets, television, all that good stuff?
Yeah. Our channel at Midco Sports Network. A lot of our games, whether it be basketball or football, are broadcast through ESPN3, especially from USD, the University of South Dakota, and South Dakota State University. And my Twitter handle for work is METS, so METTS, Midco SN. And then as far as, Facebook and Instagram, it's just my name. Instagram, I think, is like CMET91. So.
Oh, last question. I asked this to a couple of people. What is your pump-up music like for going to do an interview or pre-game when you're going to do sideline reporting?
Oh, that's a good question, too.
Or is there a pump-up music? Is there pump-up music?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I cheered in college and we'd warm up, to different music. It's not like I have to, stretch before I go ask coaches questions and take a laugh or anything. I pretty much whatever is playing during warm-ups. I know like at SDSU, we were always there, for their home football games, and it was My House, the song My House, and that was always on. Yeah, and so that was always a fun one to kind of, I don't know, I guess get you in the zone that you're about to cover a football game. So that was a lot of fun.
So there's no Frank the Tank type moments where you're looking in the mirror, let's go, or there's no listen like Dwight from The Office where he's listening to "Kickstart My Heart" by Motley Crue. There's nothing like that where you're punching the back of a car seat or anything.
Yeah, nothing that that intense, at least. I don't want to get too pumped up to where I'm like yelling at the coach or anything. That wouldn't be good.
Yeah. All right, Carla. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Very good interview, and I hope to talk to you again soon. Hopefully for some Summit League football or Summit League basketball.
That sounds good. Thanks for having us on and including Midco as well.
Yeah, no problem. Not a problem at all. I had Tom Neiman on when I came up for the Summit League tournament. So he was good. He was good to interview. So that Midco's always so. On that note, we'll be right back here with Pete Pikowski here on the Bob Sullivan Show on LateNightSportsRadio.com.
Second to keep breathing in a moment before it's gone. You never know when love is lost until you find just what it costs to be wrong. I wonder if you think of me passing by, you think you see me coming. I wonder if you pull me in, kiss me just one time again. Coming and the nights will keep on going till they're tired, falling fast asleep and as they dream of ghosts of beats filled with desire. sense of life is all around. A chance to take is always found. Oh, writing on the lullabies on the lonely living life. Oh, in the final hours of night, do you remember? Lost or found love lying by your side. In the final hours of night, do you remember? Lost or found love lying by your side. Take another second to keep breathing in the moment before it's gone. Never know when love is lost until you find just what it costs to be wrong. I wonder if you think of me passing by, you think you see me come. I wonder if you pull me in, kiss me just one time again. The final hours of night, do you remember? Lost or found love lying by your side. In the final hours of night, do you remember? Lost or found love lying by your side. In the final hours of night, do you remember? Hours of night, do you remember? Lost or found love lying by your side. In the final hours of night, do you remember? Lost or found love lying by your side.
Baby, you're a mystery. Tell me what's a girl gotta do? Looking at the history doesn't seem to give any clue. Just when I think I understand it all, you seem to unravel some more. Ooh, la, 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 ooh, I never know nobody like you. Ooh, la, 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 ooh, now I know you're dynamic. Ooh, la, la, ooh, la, 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 oh. Yeah, you keep me guessing, I'm confessing now, well, baby, it's true. I never know nobody like you. Baby, you're out and little. Baby, you're a riddle, I'm caught up in the middle of you. I'm trying to think bigger, but I can't seem to figure it through. I wanna make it better, but now I'm scared of looking a fool. Oh, baby, no, I've never been very good at playing it cool. Just when I think I understand it all, I find I know nothing at all. I never know nobody like you. Ooh, now I know
hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
You ready? Let's go.
Welcome back to the Bob Sullivan Show.
Yeah. For those of you that want to know what we're all about, it's like this, yo. This is Ted.
Joined here by Pete Pikowski of BiasBostonSports.com. Pete, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing awesome. How about you?
I'm doing very well. Enjoying the finals with some unfortunate results if you're a Cavaliers fan or a LeBron James fan. You know, the first ever athlete to have fans of him when he plays for two different franchises. Miraculously, they went from being Cavs to Heat to Cavs fans. So are Boston Celtics or Boston sports fans bathing in the tears of LeBron James fans right now?
I think a little bit, especially after everything that happened in 2008 when the Celtics, obviously, and not even in 2008, since I think 2010, 2011, the Celtics had some really good series with the Cavs and LeBron. But I think now, I mean, if LeBron loses in, stunning fashion like it looks like what's going to happen, there's a chance he opts out. And, I mean, if he opts out and for those 3 hours where no one knows where he's going to go, I mean, he's just as good as being on the Celtics as any other team. Kevin Durant's been rumored to possibly be coming to the Celtics. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities right now for the Celtics. I mean, I guess we'll see what happens. I'm, in disbelief at what's going to happen. I have no idea. At first I thought there was no chance that Kevin Durant was going to come here. And, I mean, from everything that you're hearing, there's like an actual legitimate chance for the first time probably in franchise history that they could get a big-name free agent to come to Boston. So I'm cautiously optimistic right now with the Celtics.
So do you think a LeBron or Durant, would you take LeBron? Say he's interested to the Celtics?
I mean, he's always said good things about Boston, but I mean, I don't think that, anyone would ever say a bad word about a city just because, I mean, in the world that we live in, everyone loves everyone. So, I mean, I don't think that, Kevin Durant's saying all the right things. LeBron has said all the right things in the past. If he's actually legitimately thinking about it, I mean, that remains to be seen, but I'd take LeBron in a heartbeat. I mean, as much crap as he gets, not only, around here, but nationally, I mean, he's probably, of this generation, he's probably the greatest player. And, I mean, he can completely transcend the team that we've seen with the Cavs. I mean, I'd take him in a heartbeat.
What do you think the biggest drawback, because I guess Garnett was not keen to the idea of just going to the Celtics. And Pierce,
right.
He's an LA guy. There was rumors of him wanting to get traded to the Lakers before they got Garnett and Ray Allen. And it took Ray Allen to get those two guys to really Garnett to want to go there and Pierce to want to stay. Right. What is it about Boston that, free agents aren't really keen on?
I think it's just not really like a big, sexy city like LA, Miami, even, in Texas, Houston, San Antonio. It's just, I mean, it's cold and it's crappy for 8 months out of the year, maybe. So, especially in the NBA too, it seems like a lot of guys, they want the nice weather, they want the big city, the nightlife. Boston really, I mean, it's a great city, but I mean, the bars close around here at midnight, 1 a.m. And then after that, I mean, there's nothing for a big guy like Kevin Durant or LeBron James to do. And I think, a lot of those guys like to get, glammed up and stuff like that and go out in the city. And I mean, Boston's just not that type of town. Never has been. I don't think it ever will be. And especially in the NBA, like I said, I think that really is a drawback.
Yeah, I think that is the case. Boston, if you had the Red Sox, I guess, NBA guys aren't really baseball fans, but they tend to be football fans. You'll see LeBron on the sidelines in a Browns game or a Cowboys game or whatever it may be. But as far as Boston goes, like the Red Sox aren't really in town. well, they're definitely not in town during NBA season. And it
Yeah.
just doesn't, there's nothing, can't say this from experience, but it just doesn't seem like a town that, would draw free agents. But it doesn't seem like a town that should really detract free agents either. Like there's stuff to do. It's just not. It seems like there's enough to do, but there's not, too much to do, which is unfortunately the case with NBA players. They want too much to do.
No, absolutely, yeah. I mean, we've seen it with, Gillette Stadium is not necessarily in Boston, the town in Foxborough, but they run a tight ship down there. So the guys, I don't think, are, running around, Sunday nights after a game to, go party it up. Even with the Red Sox, I mean, the Red Sox probably have the most money, aside from maybe the Yankees and the Dodgers, than anyone else in baseball. So if they throw $30 million at you like they did with David Price, I mean, the guy's going to come here, and suffer through it, I guess. But, with the NBA, it's something I really haven't seen anything like it before. I'm surprised that a big-name free agent has never come to the Celtics with all the banners and all the winning and all the history. I just think in that league, I mean, nobody really cares about it anymore, which is sad because, I mean, like you said, I mean, there's stuff to do in Boston. It's a really good winning city. It stinks, but I think, Brad Stevens, Danny Ainge, they're doing the right thing right now. They have a ton of assets, so they can, perhaps trade for a guy like they did in 2007, 2008. Hopefully something like that happens.
Do you, with that number 3 overall pick, as a Knicks fan, I feel like the Knicks would panic and sell it for Dirk Nowitzki right now.
Right.
Where it wouldn't do anybody any good. But I feel like the Celtics are smart. Like, if they don't see something they like where they're going to be able to get rid of it, they'll be able to use it as a tool. If they can't use it as a tool, they're going to just keep it for themselves. And then draft the best possible player that they can ship off in, a year or two. What do you think is the best case scenario with that number 3 pick? What is something that could happen, and what do you want to happen with that number 3 pick?
Well, going into the draft night selection, I was of the majority probably in the Boston area that thought that the Celtics were going to get porked again in the lottery. They were going to end up with the 5th or the 6th or the 7th pick, like it happened so many times before. But I mean, they got into the top 3 and then they broke the commercial break, and I kind of made myself think that they may actually get the number 1 or number 2 pick. And in a 2-person draft, it's really difficult getting the number 3 pick. But I mean, they got it, and I still think it has, some value. I think that they, if they think that, Bender's the guy, or if there's a guy like Buddy Hield that's more NBA ready that they want, I think that they're, they're not afraid to draft him. But I think, in my opinion, what they should do is look to trade it. I still think that it has some value around the league. You may find a team, like the Chicago Bulls with Jimmy Butler, or maybe the Sacramento Kings with Boogie Cousins that are maybe looking to, start over, bring in a young guy that they could potentially be a franchise player or something like that. I think it's going to be difficult, though, and, I think that once the finals end, we're going to hear a lot more rumors.
Yeah, that that's the nice thing about the NBA is as soon as the finals is over, a week later is the pretty much the draft. Would you say with the as far as the Celtics go, do they have to make a big splash? Do they have to make their splash this summer, or can they wait one summer and stash as much as they have enough stashed right now, but they'll have even more again next summer. Do they have to make their move right now?
I don't think they have to make a move right now, but Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens and Wick Grossbeck, the majority owner, they've all been promising to make a big splash the past, I think, 2 or 3 off seasons. I think Wick specifically, he really wants a move to happen. He's ready. He wants to bring a big star to Boston. He's willing to trade picks. He's willing to trade guys like Jay Crowder or Marcus Smart, or guys that have potential but aren't there yet. He wants to bring a big star to Boston now, and he's been saying that. Everyone, in the fan base has heard it. But I think guys like Danny Ainge are more inclined to make the smart decision, not the decision, that everyone might want. That may sound good right now, but in the long run, it's going to jeopardize the franchise. But, I mean, they just extended Danny Ainge, they just extended Brad Stevens, so I think that, They have trust in them. So, I mean, I'm not sure what the right move to make right now is. But I think they're going to make some type of move this offseason. I hope it's trading the pick because I really don't want to see a guy, like Bender that's going to have to play potentially a couple years overseas. I like Buddy Hield a lot, but in the same breath, I'm not sure. He might have already hit his peak. I'm not sure how much better he can get at the NBA. But like I said, a guy like Jimmy Butler, I mean, I'd love to have him on the team. But I think the problem for the Celtics right now is that 15, 16, 17 other teams around the NBA also would like a Jimmy Butler type guy. Thankfully for the Celtics, I think that they have a lot of assets and a lot of trade value. I guess we'll just see, though, what Danny Ainge has up his sleeve. Because, I mean, me personally, I didn't see, the Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce trio ever working out. I didn't think that they were going to trade for him, but, I mean, it happened, so hopefully he can work his magic again.
Do you find it funny when there's stories out there like, oh, if Brad Stevens had been coaching the Oklahoma City Thunder, they wouldn't have lost. Do you like does that feel good as a Celtics fan having that what if? And number two, are you glad you don't have to live in what if land like the rest of the NBA, like Knicks fans and Thunder fans?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's great. I mean, the thing with the Celtics, too, is that they really can't make a bad move ever, especially with, this franchise is, especially compared to the Patriots or the Red Sox, where their fans are always, hypercritical of every single move that they make. The Celtics, they can not make any move and say that it was great for the franchise because they're looking forward, or they can make a move and it's perfect because, it's going to make them win right now. Because of so much winning in the Celtics franchise, I think that they've, I don't want to say built up a good reputation, but their fans, I think, really trust them. And they don't really have a reason not to at this point. The early 2000s were bad, but, up until then, they've had winning basketball, maybe not championship contending basketball. And even in the Big Three era, they probably, should have won more than one championship. But, at this point, I think it's pretty good to be a Celtics fan. The future looks pretty bright.
Well, on to kind of pop culture type of things here. We both watched Californication on Showtime, and this isn't like a groundbreaking podcast or anything by talking about it, because it didn't just end. But, as far as Californication went, I felt like that was one of the better. That's in my top 5 favorite shows of all time. However, the ending is not. It's like the Seinfeld finale. A lot of people hated it, but I kind of felt like it was about as good as you were going to do for a finale. I felt like Californication, there was enough drama in it that you could have gone a number of different ways and not just gone with the, classic guy ends up with the girl after a classic speech on an airplane.
Sure.
I feel like we kind of got let down in the Californication world with that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that, like we were talking about before the show started, I think that something happened where they were extended for 2 more seasons and then it got cut short or something like that. So they kind of just had to wrap it all up together in, 6 episodes or whatever. Considering how good the first, I don't remember how many seasons the show was, but, up until that final season, it was great. And that last one, like you said, it kind of just wrapped it all up neat and tightly for everyone, that wanted that to happen, and it did. But I would have liked to see them maybe just, develop the show a little bit more, especially towards the end.
Well, and like in any movie or TV show where there's constant breakups and get back togethers, I don't know how Friends ended, and I don't really care because that show sucked, in my opinion. I don't know if you're a Friends fan, but as far as Californication went, it was like, okay, so the end of season 1, where he gets Karen back, wins her back, screws it up in season 2, gets her back, screws it up. Like, who's to say that it's not going to get screwed? Like, it's not like that was the first time he gave us when he's on the plane. It's not like that's the first time Hank Moody has given that speech where it's, Karen, we just work together. Like, that doesn't I'm sorry, that doesn't work. Like, that
Right.
That show was great up until that point. It's like I felt like he should have either killed himself or wound up alone. And those were the only two options in my opinion. She leaves and never sees him again.
Yeah, I mean, too, the thing, I mean, them moving back to New York to see his daughter or whatever, I mean, he pretty much exhausted all of his resources, let's say, in L.A. So for him just to go to another new city with a bunch of new girls, I mean, the chances of him, like, staying committed to, her name was Karen, and then, you know, I mean, that whole thing, it's just, I don't really see it happening. I think moving across country would kind of be stressful, too. So for two people that don't have a great relationship, that's probably not the best thing to do. But, I mean, it's a show, so I guess, you know, it works.
I guess it opens it up for the possibility of a movie.
Yeah.
But I can't see, there's not, like, I don't think it has a big enough, like, it has a following, like, I think it's a kind of a cult following with it, where there's only a select few that would go see it in theaters, or if they went to Netflix or had a Showtime movie or something, that it could work. But I can't see, it opens it up for a possibility of coming back or for a movie. But those are the only two options. I can't, it just, that ending really disappointed me.
Kind of the same thing with, I don't know if you watch the show too, but Entourage, like, it was the same thing. I mean, they had a great regular season, and then kind of towards the end, like, it kind of slowed down, but then they brought a movie back which kind of, you know, wrapped everything up. I mean, I think the thing too is that, especially with the show like Entourage and Californication, I mean, you could just go on forever. So at some point they need to stop it. But I mean, I'm just not sure if, especially with the Californication, they stopped it at a point where I don't think that everything was set in stone of what was going to happen to when the show was done.
I feel like with Entourage and Californication, I like Californication better. I felt like both of them though were Entourage more so was, you know, the plot didn't have as much substance. It was more like, oh man, that would just be so cool to live that lifestyle. Then, like, that plot was like, oh man, that episode it was really good because, you know, Vincent and Turtle both got laid or something like that. But it wasn't like
it was a bro show.
Yeah, it was a bro show. And Californication would be like, man, that'd be awesome to live Hank Moody, or like you can relate to Hank Moody just being a dick or something like that, or not getting along with people, or you can relate to it. But there was more substance. Like I felt like there was more on the line as far as plot went with Californication than Entourage. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, with Entourage too. I mean, he's a movie star, so I don't think that. I mean, there was never going to be like a downward spiral. I remember a couple of times on the show, like you wouldn't get a part, and he'd just go to. I don't remember what season it was, but he just went to some random island and was with like 10 girls. You know, it was perfect. And then he got a script for a movie, and then he just went back to LA and got the movie and got millions of dollars, and the whole show just kept on going on again. But, I mean, with Hank Moody and Californication, I think that's not what would happen. It's unrealistic.
Okay, one more thing before I let you go.
Sure.
Would it be fair to say Adam Sandler is the Nicolas Cage of comedy?
In what context?
In the fact that his early work was really good, and then he's just cashed out and been like, okay, I'm going to do all these movies, hang out with my friend. I guess Nicolas Cage doesn't really have any friends, but he basically just does everything for money now and doesn't do anything good. Like, Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison were good. Wedding Singer was good, but there really hasn't been anything of substance since then. Maybe 50 First Dates. Reign Over Me I liked, but there's been a lot of horse crap in between. And with Nicolas Cage, he won an Academy Award for Leaving Las Vegas. And then he started getting into the Face-Offs and the Wicker Man remakes and the all the horse crap that he's Daredevil 2, that horse crap that we. Would you say that's a fair comparison?
Yeah, totally. I mean, especially there's some new movie on Netflix that Adam Sandler just came out with called, I think it was The Do-Over or something like that. I haven't watched it yet. I plan on watching it. I don't know if it was any good, but I mean, he had Mr. Deeds was good. Big Daddy, that was a good movie. But I mean, once he got into 2005 or so, I mean, everything kind of went downhill. The one movie I did like that he made that was couple years ago was Grown Ups. That was a pretty good movie. The first one. Second one was terrible. Underrated movie by Nick Cage too was The Rock. That was a really good movie. But yeah, totally, I can totally see the comparison.
I'll give you The Rock. My problem with Grown Ups is he did, when they did This Is the End. Seth Rogen did This Is the End with Jay Bushnell and James Franco and all those people. They did basically the same thing as far as, hey, let's get our buddies together and do a movie together. But I feel like they did it better. This Is the End I felt was better. That was my thing. Grown Ups there were some laughable moments, but I'm not a big fan of Maya Rudolph. I thought Salma Hayek was out of place in that movie. Yeah, but I felt like there was time. Chris Rock had some funny moments. Kevin James had some funny moments, but you look at it, and what it missed was Chris Farley.
Right. Yeah. The one thing I do give Sam credit for, though, is he always kind of kept true to his roots. He did a lot of movies in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, up in the New England area. I think he moved there when he was a young kid from New York. I think maybe Brooklyn. So I like that he keeps his movies close around here. It's kind of in a weird way relatable because a lot of movies aren't filmed around here. But other than that, I totally agree.
Well, on that note, Pete, do you want to tell everybody where we can find you on Twitter, the internets, all that good stuff?
Sure. You can follow me on Twitter at Pete_BBS. Some people tell me I'm funny. I don't really see it. On the website, you can find me at biasbostonsports.com. We do a podcast, do a bunch of articles, pre and post game for the Red Sox. Some great stuff going on there.
All right. Well, Pete, I appreciate you coming on. Hope to have you on.
All right. Thank you very much.
And on that note, we'll be right back here on the Bob Sullivan Show here on LateNightSportsRadio.com with Joshua Greenberg.
Maybe
Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Thank you. You're far too kind. Woo! Yeah. Ready? Woo! Let's go.
Back to the Bob Sullivan Show here on latenightsportsradio.com. I'm joined by Harambe from the Cincinnati, the ghost of Harambe from the Cincinnati Zoo. And Joshua Greenberg from the baseball department, head of Last Word on Sports. Josh, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and Harambe's ghost is doing very well as well.
As well as a ghost can.
Yeah, as far as zoo stories go, one of the bigger ones here in Omaha was some kid threw a T-shirt into a lion's den, and a lion ate it and had to have emergency surgery. So that was kind of the Omaha thing. Cincinnati Zoo obviously don't have as good a control over their customers as they do here at the Omaha Zoo, but that's beyond the point. Baseball, how's it going so far? As a fan of baseball and a writer of baseball, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm having a great time this season. It's been pretty interesting. The White Sox coming out of nowhere to be pretty darn good. The Phillies have fallen off lately, but they were an interesting early season story. And then we got, maybe one of the greatest pitching duels. I don't know if it's really, they haven't faced each other really, but Arrieta versus Kershaw, who's better? So far, I think Kershaw, but it's really something to watch these two go at it every day, every fifth day, this season.
With Arrieta's win streak coming to an end here against the Diamondbacks, what do you make of, where does this rank as far as, streaks or records, or where does this stand, as far as not losing? He had the winning streak, and he had the consecutive starts not lost. What is your take on this streak? Where does it rank in Major League Baseball?
There's been some impressive pitching accomplishments over the years, but I think this is one of them. It's up there. I don't know if I'd call it top 10 because there's been a lot of great pitchers over the years do some really amazing things, but it's getting up there. I mean, what he did, not only not losing, but the consecutive starts without a loss, he had no losses, the team had no losses, and he had no losses between his no-hitters, which was, of his starts, between his no-hitters, which I think is just maybe even more incredible than the streak itself. I mean, what he did and the way he did it, the strikeout numbers, the walk numbers, the no-hitters, of course. I mean, it's maybe top 10, probably top 15 for me in sport, and at least in pitching accomplishments I've watched.
Where would you rank as far as unfair steroid or performance-enhancing drug accusations? Where would you rank him as far as that goes for this era since the testing has come into play? There's been accusations against Stanton. Where would you rank this? Would you rank this in the top 5, top 10? Pretty complicated question.
I might actually say that this is, for me, maybe not the most unfair, maybe the most unfair, but at least the most unfounded steroid accusation ever. I mean, first of all, there's no evidence at all. His physique isn't changed. The only thing that's different is he's pitching better than he did in Baltimore, which could be a number of things: a change in mechanics, a new location, a new pitching coach. And the fact is, he's just a really good pitcher. And the reason most players take steroids is to recover from injury or gain a bit of strength, but it doesn't make you become a better player. It adds a bit of strength to you and changes your physique a little bit, but it doesn't make you a better player. No. I mean, he's just pitching better than he did in Baltimore, and that's nothing steroids can give him. I think it's maybe the most unfair and definitely the most unfounded steroid accusation since the major era of testing.
as far as Arrieta goes, um, I don't think he took steroids, but what is he, 29 right now?
Yeah, I
feel-
think he's 30. He just turned 30 in March.
Okay. So he just turned 30. And you know how, when we were in the steroid era and then post-steroid era, when people were like, oh, these guys, they're extending their career by 5 years, their prime by 5 years, or starting their prime 5 years too early. If you look at it, wasn't it, okay, your physical, your ability prime was 28 to 32. So he's right in that wheelhouse. Like, yes, he has had his career has exploded in the last year and a half or so, but he's 29 and 30. That's right in the wheelhouse, 28 to 32, where everybody's like, okay, that's when you're going to hit your physical peak, your numbers are going to peak. If he's, taking steroids, he obviously picked a really good time to do it.
Exactly.
To cover it up. But that's my argument is this is the time when, the guys that actually have their best numbers, whether it be in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever it was, this is when you have your best stuff, your best hitting, your best, running of, playing basketball, whatever sport it may be. I can't, the argument that with steroids, I feel is completely uneducated, and people like Stephen A. Smith, who don't really watch baseball and just are able to comment on it in living. It's almost like the doctors on ABC, who aren't actually doctors; they're just fake people.
Right.
Tell you how to, eat. That you're not supposed to eat fast food. That's pretty much what it's like right now. Those are the people that are accusing him, and that's unfair.
I completely agree with that. I mean, and you're right. It's a very good point. He's right in the middle of his physical prime when he's supposed to be. If he has the talent, this is when it's supposed to come out to its fullest. So, I mean, when people say, how did he become good all of a sudden? Well, maybe he's just maximizing his talent exactly when he should be. And it's not like he's been completely unhittable. I mean, he had a game back May 25th, not too long ago, gave up 4 earned runs on 7 hits. And he hasn't really been, had pinpoint control. He's given up 26 walks on the season. It's not like Kershaw, where if you're going to accuse, I think, Arrieta, I mean, why not Kershaw too, who has been arguably better?
Actually, or not why every other pitcher in this era right now. Because the pitchers are winning. Like, hitting, everybody's figured out the hitting philosophy as far as, hey, you have to have this perfect swing to go through the zone, and you're going to hit 200 at this level. If you hit the ball out here, you're going to hit 400, and you can hit every pitch in the strike zone.
Right.
Well, then, if that's missing, that perfect swing misses a lot more than it hits, obviously, because people are swinging at bad pitches, and there's a lot more no-hitters, and a no-hitter is becoming obsolete at this point because of this perfect swing. And as far as the no-hitter goes, why aren't we accusing every single pitcher, whether it be Kershaw, I can't really even, Cole Hamels having a breakthrough again this year with the Texas Rangers, David Price, whoever it may be, why aren't there all accusations out against pitchers when during the 90s it was all against hitters?
Right, and I'm not going to go out and say that any of these pitchers are taking steroids because unless I have evidence, I don't want to accuse any of them of that. I have no reason to believe that Kershaw is taking steroids, and I don't think that he is. But if we're going to accuse Jake Arrieta of things like that, why shouldn't we accuse any other pitcher?
Because it's not convenient. Kershaw's been doing this since he came up. And Stephen A. Smith has heard of Kershaw since he came. And he didn't hear of Arrieta until he went to the Cubs, and that's why he's taking steroids. So that's why he's doing it. As far as Major League Baseball is going, what would you say as far as Matt Harvey goes? Was this last week a couple good starts? Is that something that he's going to build off of, or are we going to do we need to pump the brakes a little bit as far as Matt Harvey fans go?
Well, I never like to use small sample sizes to say that someone has turned something around or someone is trending in the wrong direction. And I think 2 starts is a small sample size. But in Matt Harvey's case, we know that he has this ability. I mean, the way he's pitched in his last 2 starts is the way people expect him to pitch. So I think that it's a promising sign. I'm not going to say he's 100% back, but it's definitely a promising sign. And you look at his stats, especially from the start on the 30th against the White Sox, he allowed the fewest fly balls he'd allowed in a game all season and got the second most ground balls. I mean, I think that's the main thing. And only allowed 2 hits. He allowed less hard contact and less fly ball contact. I think that, he was allowing a lot of hits and he was allowing a lot of fly balls in his starts previous to that May 30th start. And I think the reason you maybe can't take that, for granted that he's back is because he went back to that, even though he had a good start on June 5th, he went back to that high fly ball count. He allowed 10 fly balls in 7 innings on that June 5th start, even though he only allowed 1 earned run. But I do think he's trending in the right direction. I think those ground balls to fly balls is a good indication. I think that he's allowing fewer hits. Prior to that May 30th start, he'd allowed 16 hits in 7 2/3 innings over his previous 2 starts. Then in his last 2 starts, he's allowed 6 total hits in 14 innings. I mean, he's just allowing less contact, and he's missing more bats. Not necessarily for strikeouts, but he's just, he's allowing less contact, allowing less fly balls, and I think that's really the big key to his turnaround, and I think it's going to continue. He might have another rough start here and there, but I think that he's probably going to trend in the right direction from here on out.
Let me get my, I usually test these opinions on other people, but I want to test my theory out on you to see what your thoughts are. Okay, so my theory is with Matt Harvey, and I kind of came up with this on the fly on the Johnny Bobo show earlier this week, was he came back from Tommy John surgery last year, and then once they got to the playoffs, it was DeGrom, Syndergaard, and Matz, and whoever else that was kind of stealing the line. Like Matt Harvey was going to be that. It was supposed to be that guy where it was like, oh, we can't live without Matt Harvey. Like we're going to build this pitching staff around him. And then kind of last October, it was like, do we really need to build this pitching staff around Matt Harvey? Could we just kind of let him go and we could build around these Syndergaard and DeGrom? That was the kind of the thing last postseason. Do you think that he came back trying to not only come back too much from he had a comeback from Tommy John surgery, and then trying to overprove himself that he is the guy to build around, not DeGrom or Syndergaard? Do you think he was trying too hard in these starts? I felt like he was trying too hard right now. Like his effort, he was over trying, which sounds ridiculous, but I feel like that was the situation with Matt Harvey right now in New York as far as why he was struggling. What was your opinion on why he was struggling so much early on?
I think that you might have something there. I think that he was probably over pitching a little bit, and that might have been to do with the fact that, when he went on the DL, he was that guy. He was definitely the ace of the staff, and there was no question about that. And then he comes back, and he's in a staff full of aces. I mean, potential aces anyway. And then maybe he felt some pressure to prove that, or felt that he needed to prove to the fans or to the organization that he was still the ace instead of just being, another guy in the rotation. And maybe now he's figuring out that, it's okay to just be another ace in a rotation of aces. I mean, I guess it just makes him another guy, but it also doesn't make him not an ace. So maybe he's over pitching. Maybe he was still a little tired from, he came back from Tommy John last year. He pitched a lot of innings going into the playoffs and then pitched a lot of innings in the playoffs. So maybe there were still some residual effects of that going on. But I definitely could see it being something to do with he felt he had to prove that he was still the ace instead of just being comfortable with being a guy in the rotation.
Yeah, it's kind of a Steven Strasburg, like a more exaggerated Steven Strasburg situation. Like I feel like Strasburg has kind of accepted that he's not the guy. Post, whether it be with Scherzer or Zimmerman or whoever the hell it may be in Washington, but I feel like he's kind of accepted that he's not the guy. And I think he's pretty cool with that. Harvey, on the other hand, has not accepted that, and I don't think he really is cool with that. Would you agree with that as well?
Yeah, I mean, their personalities, at least from what you can see through the media, are very different. I mean, you look at Strasburg, and you can tell he's comfortable with where he is in Washington because he took that very, I mean, it was still a huge deal, but it was a very team-friendly deal. It was good for both parties, actually, I think. But he looks to be very comfortable with where he is and what he is with the Nationals right now. And I agree that Harvey, I mean, the way he deals with the media, maybe that's just he doesn't like talking to the media. Some players are like that. But the way he comes off is sort of disgruntled with his situation a little bit. Maybe that's not the right word, but he doesn't seem comfortable, doesn't seem quite happy. Maybe he doesn't like the pressure, whether it's him making the pressure up in his own mind or maybe whether it's real, he doesn't like that feeling. But I agree that he doesn't seem as comfortable with his situation as Strasburg is with his.
I know, well, and obviously $175 million or what will make you comfortable in whatever situation is possible. But as far as, you're a media member, I wouldn't really call myself professional, but you're a professional media member. I'm unprofessional media member. What is your take as far as how Matt Harvey and some of these, even like when players refuse to speak English so that they don't have to give post-game interviews, or a Matt Harvey just ducking out completely. You think that's a big deal? Like I don't really have a problem with whether it be a player that is from another country where it's like, well, I'm not going to speak because whatever they say could get misinterpreted and blown out of proportion. I don't have a problem with them not the player from another country not doing the post-game press conference. I really don't have a problem with some of these Matt Harveys or whoever, James Shields, whoever it may be, not giving a post-game interview just to satisfy the press. Like, why would you want to answer questions? Like, if you've been struggling, you don't know why you're struggling. Or you know why you're struggling, but why would you share it with the media as to why you're struggling? It's just going to fester, and it's going to mount, and it's going to keep rolling downhill if you tell the media, like, oh, I'm struggling because I'm not reaching out as far. Or if you're a hitter, I'm not seeing the curveball as well. Well, you're going to get more curveballs from a pitcher if somebody hears that. They're going to expose the problem that you give out to the media. Do you have a problem with these guys not giving interviews post-game in a 162-game season a couple times?
No, not at all. I personally don't think that players should be obligated to deal with the media. Especially in a baseball season where you have to play 162 games and then see the media after every single one of them. But, I mean, I think there's a difference between not wanting to talk to the media and then blowing them off in a manner that seems, rude or disingenuous. Because the fact is, as a professional athlete, it's part of their job is dealing with the media. At some point, they're going to have to. And you have to have a good relationship with them. And it's fine to not want to talk to the media at some point, but you can, I think it's that athletes, if they're feeling that after a game, or they don't want to, if they have no explanation for some things, or if they don't want to talk about a certain topic, there are more polite ways to, go about it than maybe Matt Harvey did. And I completely understand why he's feeling the way he was. But I think that, there are professional ways to go about not speaking with the media. And I don't think that Matt Harvey was very professional in the way he did that. But again, I don't think he has any obligation to speak with the media or should have any obligation to speak with the media. And I understand why he wouldn't want to.
Okay. Before we get into more actual baseball, I do have a thing for you. And I've dwelled on this for years. So when McGwire was in the home run chase with Sosa, 1998, a writer saw a bottle of Andro in his locker, and that writer was cast off as a leper, basically. Like, hey, this guy is an idiot. This guy shouldn't even be in clubhouses anymore. Cast off by players, by writers, and everything. Now, my problem, I don't have a problem like if there's an ethical thing as far as if you see something in a locker, you don't report on it. You see something in a locker room that's going on, you don't report it. You don't take pictures in a locker room with your phone. I get that there's certain ethical things that you don't do as a media member. However, if you want to take that stance as a media member, as far as writers go, why are these guys that vote for the Hall of Fame allowed to cast off a guy that outs somebody who is taking, yes, it was a non-banned substance, but it was still a steroid. They're outing, casting off a guy that was questioning a substance that McGuire was taking. Yet these guys won't vote McGuire in, Sosa in, any of these guys that made baseball way more exciting in the 90s than Cal Ripken Jr. Isn't there a problem with that?
Yeah, there definitely is. I think that the voters, people who have Hall of Fame votes, those writers, are a little bit self-righteous. Like I said, I agree with. I don't have a problem with players when they don't want to talk to media, and I don't think they should be rude about it. But I also don't think that that sort of thing should play into whether a person gets voted into the Hall of Fame or not. And that's obviously not the only reason that Sosa and McGuire are being kept up, but they weren't, media favorites. And the steroids thing, I also think, is not something that should be something that keeps a player out of the Hall of Fame. I mean, it was a part of baseball history, and I view the Hall of Fame mostly as a museum of baseball history. And the fact is that the steroid era happened. Baseball profited immensely off of it, and then once it became socially unacceptable, they cast these guys aside. And they profit on them and then throw them away when they're no longer useful. And I definitely have a big problem with that. If I had a vote, and I don't, I would probably say that guys from the steroid era should get in. And I definitely don't agree with writers keeping, players out just because they were a little bit rude to them in post-game press conferences at some point.
This is not going to be popular, but I'll bring it up. It's not, as far as museums go, there's not popular branches of museums, whether it be with the, if there's a World War II museum, there's going to be an exhibit about the Nazis, or there's going to be an exhibit about the Japanese on Pearl Harbor. There's going to be not popular exhibits, but there's interesting parts of, the Germans and the the Russians were the most popular people. There's not going to be popular parts of it. And I know, obviously, you get your unpopular parts of the Hall of Fame with a Ty Cobb, who was a complete racist and scumbag. Nonetheless, he is in the Hall of Fame. And, whether, you get a Holocaust museum in Kansas City or whatever it may be with talking about the Nazis, that's an unpopular part of that museum. You have to, right, wrong, or indifferent, there's parts of museums people aren't going to like. And it's a Hall of Fame. Granted, it is a Hall of Fame, but it is a museum, and there's unpopular parts of it. Like these steroid guys, these guys were not the worst people in the world. Like these were just guys that tried to do more than they should. There should be something in the Hall of Fame to recognize how great these players actually were, whether they were taking steroids or not.
Right, I agree. And if you have to include an asterisk or a notice that says this is the Hall of Fame steroid era section, I mean, that's fine. But these players should be in the Hall of Fame. I don't think that there's any real logic that would say that they shouldn't be. But writers will continue to be on their high horse. Hopefully, I mean, we've seen sort of a trend in the last couple of votes, maybe heading in the right direction. And as the writers get younger, I think maybe we'll get more of these players to get in. I mean, it'll be too late for a lot of them, but maybe the Veterans Committee eventually puts them in. But yeah, they should be in there. Whatever it takes, they should be in there.
Are you surprised that Jeff Kent, I don't know whether he's available or not, but are you surprised Jeff Kent is not higher on, like, I feel like he was a better second baseman than Biggio. Like, defensively, no. But as far as second baseman that I feared in the 90s and 2000s, Kent pushed Biggio out to the outfield when he went to Houston. And I felt like Alomar was pretty damn good. And I would have gone Alomar, Kent, Biggio as far as my three top second basemen in late 90s, mid to late 90s, early 2000s. Are you surprised that he's not getting any votes or any love right now?
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised. Statistically, I guess he deserves it. But in a lot of ways, I'm not surprised. I always felt like he was he got less notice than a lot of he definitely got less notice than Biggio for some reason. I don't know why, but for me, it's a name recognition thing. And I'm not saying Jeff Kent isn't well known, but he seems to be, lesser known somehow or for some reason, or underrated for some reason. But for that reason, I'm not surprised. Statistically, I think he definitely deserves to be in there. But yeah, again, I'm not exactly 100% surprised he's not getting the love he deserves.
Couple more questions before I let you go. James Shields trade. What is your take on this right now for the White Sox?
I mean, I like it for the White Sox. I think that they needed a fifth starter. They were essentially going with their Quintana, Lato, and then the combination of other guys trying to fill in that fifth spot. And Latos himself, he's fallen off kind of lately. From his great start, he's now up to a 4.02 ERA on the season. So they sort of needed some reinforcements. And Shields, who, he didn't have the best start to the season, but he's been pretty good lately. I mean, his last start was dismal, obviously. 2.2 inning pitch, 10 earned runs, that's horrible. But prior to that, he'd gone 4 starts without allowing more than 2 earned runs. 3 starts. And then he allowed 4 back on May 7th. And then before that, he had 2 other starts where he'd allowed only 1 earned run. I mean, he's had a pretty good season so far. I think it's a very good acquisition for them, and they didn't have to give up too much. I mean, they gave up a spot starter, essentially, who's now going to take Shields' spot in the Padres' rotation in Johnson. But they also gave up Fernando Tatis Jr., who's really who the Padres really wanted. And I think that's a fair compensation.
Was Joe Buck Jr. in the trade on that too?
I don't see his name. I'm looking at the details right now, and maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah, I'm kidding.
I see.
Yeah.
But Tatis, I think that he could be a good piece. He's young, so I think it was fair compensation because we don't really know what he's going to be at this point. But for a Padres team that really can't hit right now and needs to stack their farm system, which is thin on hitters, with young talent to help their rebuild, which is going to be several years in the making, I think Tatis was a good acquisition for them.
Well, Josh, on that note, do you want to tell everybody where we can find you on Twitter, the internets, all that good stuff?
You can find me on Twitter at LastWordJBerg, and you can find me online at lastwordonsports.com/baseball. We're right in the middle, well, actually near the end, since the draft is coming up. We've been putting out for about a month some draft prospect profiles, so I'd check those out. You want to know who your team's going to take, that's going to tell you. So that's where you can find me and my writers. Yeah.
I'm interested. Did you do draft stuff last year by chance?
We did not, no.
Okay, well, do you do it by state or just by... How do you do the draft previews?
What we did this year, this is our first year sort of covering the draft. I had some of my writers compile a list of who we thought our top 50 prospects would be, and we just sort of started writing up profiles on them. You know, we were looking at their skill set, their strengths and weaknesses, and who they would kind of compare to in the major leagues, and which team we thought would be most likely to take them.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you off air about that. But on that note, Josh, I'd love to have you back on, talk some more baseball, talk some draft when that comes around, and look to have you on again soon, man.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. And on that note, that'll do it for this edition of the Bob Sullivan Show. Greenberg and Pete Pikowski, and we'll see you again next week here on the Bob Sullivan Show here on LateNightSportsRadio.com.